This podcast is brought to you by the Pro Bono Institute. PBI is a nonprofit organization that supports, enhances, and helps to transform the pro bono efforts of major law firms, in-house corporate legal departments, and public interest organizations in the U.S. and around the world. In today's Challenge Signatory Showcase episode, I'm joined by Derek Bolka, Contract Specialist and Project Lead for Disability In at Accenture, and Luciana Arana, Senior Contracting Counsel at Accenture Brazil, who led the implementation of the Legal Access Pro Bono program in Brazil in 2021. Derek will share insights about the Disability In project, and Luciana will discuss Accenture's name change pro bono work in Brazil with NGO Casa Florescer. We find out about the amazing pro bono work by law firms and corporations through PBI's annual surveys sent to signatories of the Law Firm Pro Bono Challenge Initiative and the Corporate Pro Bono Challenge Initiative. PBI uses the surveys as an essential source of both quantitative and qualitative information about the pro bono programs of law firms and in-house corporate legal departments, and produces both a law firm challenge report and a CPBO challenge report every June with the data collected. Check out this year's challenge reports on PBI's website. Let's get into today's showcase. Derek, can you start off by telling us about the Accenture Legal Access Disability In Pro Bono project?
Both of our projects today are part of what we call legal access. So Accenture, being one of the largest legal departments in the U.S. with varied specialties, and we have a global presence, to here today. Altogether, we have what we call the Global Legal Network, which includes licensed attorneys, but also legal paraprofessionals. So we have a really large pool of resources and talent we can leverage to, bring about change in our communities through these projects. Legal Access was launched in 2019. Since then, we've had over 11,000 hours and 150 projects, of which 2 we're going to talk about today. Legal Access essentially facilitates our legal team in being able to provide pro bono services across the broad spectrum of areas of need. We usually identify organizations we might partner with and areas of interest we'd address, and then see how our legal team can assist. Then we have project leads like me, and we connect them to a team of volunteers. And I am the project lead for one of these projects called Disability In. So what Disability In is, first, because this isn't generally a typical pro bono legal project that you might hear about, Disability In is a nonprofit organization based in the U.S. promoting inclusion and diversity in the workplace for people with disabilities. They partner with over 500 of the leading companies in the U.S. and abroad. As an aside, actually, inclusion and diversity is an integral part of our legal department and Accenture as a whole. So, for example, we have a Chad Jarity Fellowship for people with disabilities, who was one, and we have hired 3 full-time employees from that program. So disability inclusion and diversity in the workplace was an important goal to us and an important goal to Disability In. So it seemed like it makes sense that we pair up. So what we do is we provide pro bono in-house general counsel. And this was actually a first for Accenture. And because of its success, we are currently using the model to expand to other organizations, currently just in the disability space and the disabled community, but we have others lined up, so more to come.
What has been the role of Accenture in this pro bono project?
So the role of our legal department here is really we strive to be, a trusted advisor and partner to Disability In, pretty much just like we do with our business clients. So Disability In will reach out with legal issues as they arise, and I'll coordinate a bench of volunteers to leverage, our very legal experience across the company, depending on what issue they have. Since we're such a large in-house legal department, there's a lot of experience we can pull from many different service industries, for example, working in cutting edge technology like Gen I or quantum computing. So I link up whatever issue Disability In has with an expert in that field.
What organizations did Accenture collaborate with for this partnership project, and why is this collaboration so important?
We had actually partnered with Disability In previously as one of their companies to help us with inclusion and diversity within Accenture ourselves. So we were familiar with them through that. So we already, knew some people over there. So we reached out to them and said, we have this idea. You don't have in-house legal counsel, but we have a lot of resources at our disposal to help you. We work in collaboration with them to be a trusted partner and advisor. And that's why it's a kind of a unique program in that we aren't serving individuals like today's other project. But by helping disability in to operate and contract with vendors and build partnerships, etc., we help facilitate them meet their needs. We will also partner with outside legal departments for some of our projects, specifically this one. Sometimes if we need extra help, or we partner with other legal organizations like Legal Aid Chicago for expungements clinics. This was the first project of its kind for us. Due to its success and that we were able to help them out with so many issues and realize this was a need for nonprofits, we were using this as a model and trying to find other nonprofits to partner with too. Hope to continue to add more in maybe other spaces other than just disability.
What impact has this pro bono work made?
We help disability achieve their goals and expand their ability to provide assistance to the disability community. So, for example, we advise them on what it takes to expand internationally. They wanted to have a presence in Japan and hire a consultant there. So we linked them up with somebody in our HR department and help them figure out, what do you need to look out for, look at the agreements that need to be in place to get them to expand there. And we really essentially enable them to dedicate their limited resources to their goals of helping the disabled community without having to worry about paying for outside legal fees.
What would you say is the most challenging part of this type of project?
Like anything, it's a matter of finding time. But with the model we've set up, we have a bench of volunteers who have varied schedules. So once Disability In reaches out to us with XYZ issue, I can reach out to that bench of volunteers and say, hey, who has bandwidth to deal with this issue? And then somebody will usually not be so busy, depending on what's going on in their schedule, and we'll pick it up. And also, it's easy for attorneys to work on their own schedule. So like a contract review or to do some legal research can be done on after hours and on their own time. That's really one of the beautiful aspects of this program.
Is there any advice that you would give to other organizations that want to do similar pro bono work?
I have one piece of advice that holds true regardless of whether you're serving an organization or individual, and whether it's a new relationship or continuing an established one, is ask, what do you need? What does the organization need? What does the person need? Then, armed with that basic knowledge, you can take the next step and ask, how can we help you? This kind of gets us from keep getting bogged down with the logistics and the constraints of what the project is and getting it set up, and kind of keeps us laser focused on what they need and how we can help them. So we don't lose track of, in trying to do good, we want to do, good for them and not just what we think they want.
Luciana, can you tell us about the Accenture Legal Access Casa Florescer name change initiative?
Casa Florescer, which is translated by something like the blooming house, is the NGO we supported in this project. And it is a pioneering shelter house in Brazil, especially in São Paulo, that welcomes and serves transgender and trans individuals in vulnerable situations. And it provides support with like a shelter, of course, but also with food, education, support on physical and mental health, and also with work allocation whenever possible. So in general terms, Accenture Legal, through our legal access program we spoke before here in Brazil, we provided support to help transgender women in their process of rectifying their names and gender in their official document.
What has been the role of Accenture in this pro bono project?
We had this main role of supporting them with the rectification process, but it was more than that. We, as corporate lawyers, we are used to solve companies' issues, but in this case, we had to help them in a matter we knew little about that is not part of our day-to-day life as attorneys. We had to go deep in our Brazilian legislation to understand how the rectification process was. We also needed to understand which documentation we needed to find out. We mapped the entire journey to be followed. And we, additionally, from the legal side, we trained our volunteers about transgender literacy so that we would be able to speak properly with this public. We went to Casa Florescer in person more than once. We met those women, we spoke to them, we listened to their stories, we watched their routine a little. We spoke with the manager. We created a bond with Casa Florescer and with the girls before we start our rectification journey. And also, one important aspect is knowing that the rectification process had a cost and how vulnerable these women are. We started a fundraising campaign in partnership with our Pride community in Accenture, which is the LGBTQIA plus group here, to help with the funds that they needed to obtain the documentation. And then just after creating that bond and after having the resources, we started the process, the more bureaucratic part.
What organizations did Accenture collaborate with for this partnership project, and why is this collaboration so important?
It's important to highlight, although I'm from contracting, we had volunteers from the entire legal department, from all teams. We are divided in several teams. So this was one first thing. And also we partnered with our Pride community, as I said, our LGBTQIA plus group, both with the sponsorship of the project and with the fundraising campaign. And yes, it is important. For example, it was a person from the Pride community that introduced us to Casa Florescer. The project wouldn't have existed without this collaboration.
What impact has this pro bono work made?
Well, I could simply say that we help them to guarantee a constitutional right, the right to dignity, by supporting them to have their names and gender according to their identities. Because this is the right that oriented the enactment of the applicable legislation that allows rectification. But it was much more than that. And we could see that in person because we follow them in this journey in person. So imagine that these women live their lives with a name that did not reflect who they were. Imagine them reading their birth certificates or their IDs, their labor documents. Imagine them applying for jobs, showing themselves as women, but having to present their documents as men. So by supporting them, we help them to fully be who they are. And it was a huge impact, in my opinion. It was amazing. Yes. And last but not least, it also impacted the transgender professionals that work in Accenture, because after our project became known in our organization, these professionals, they started having this benefit to have the reimbursement of the costs of their rectification process. So it became a benefit in Accenture Brazil. And we thought it was an amazing achievement as well.
What would you say is the most challenging part of this type of project?
I would list two things. First one is the lack of the documents that were needed for the rectification. So It is a bureaucratic process, and you needed to gather like between 10 and 15 different documents, like updated birth certificates, taxpayers' registrations, voter cards, existing lawsuits against them, military justice certificate, and many others. Some of them you can get online, but others you can't. So these women are from all around Brazil. They're in São Paulo now, but they are like one of them was from the Amazon, for example. And we had to call registration offices, notary offices, and really chase the documentation that was not available online. So this is the first one. And the second challenge, I think, is that these women live a very inconstant life. So sometimes we started the process, and then all of a sudden, one of them just left the house. They come and go. It's pretty sad in that sense. So then we stopped the process. And then some documentation had expiration dates. And then we needed sometimes to start all over again. That was another challenge.
Is there any advice that you would give to other organizations that want to do similar pro bono work?
When we started the Legal Access Program in Brazil, we created some rules of engagement, which I thought was really important for people to understand what they were committing to. Another thing is important to look within the organization, right? Some groups, communities from your organizations, just as we did with the Pride community in Casa Florescer, you can partner with them in very important projects. So another thing, talk to your corporate citizenship team. They know and they partner with many NGOs, and one of these NGOs might be potential entity that you can support with legal services. And talk to your colleagues, because the person on your side might also have a great idea of a project. So talk to people you work with. And a very important advice I would give, set a mindset that pro bono NGOs are like any other client. So you have to establish a level of commitment to support them, right? And communicate properly to get a good level of engagement. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and hope to hear about other projects, because I am now a fan of your podcast.
Yay! Thanks to Derek Bolka and Luciana Arana for their leadership and expertise. Special thanks to Accenture for doing great work and being a corporate pro bono challenge signatory. If your law firm or in-house legal department is interested in becoming a challenge signatory, check out PBI's website for more information. Thanks for listening, and be sure to tune in next time on the Pro Bono Happy Hour's Challenge Signatory Showcase series to hear more about innovative pro bono work.